Good morning. My name is Brian Talcott. I'm a lawyer here in Portland, Oregon. I'll ask my fellow judges to please introduce themselves.
Good morning. My name is Donald Housley. I've been helping out with the Classroom Law Project for about 16 years, and I teach at St. Mary's Academy.
Good morning. My name is Sunny Pettit. I'm Executive Director at the Center for Women's Leadership at Portland State University, and I'm glad to see everybody here.
I'd like to ask the panel to please introduce yourselves.
Hello, my name is George, and today we will be discussing the philosophical and historical origins of the Constitution.
Good morning, my name is Leah.
Hi, my name is Amelia. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Greetings, my name is Piper. Good morning, my name is Kate.
Hello, my name is Jonathan, and we'd like to thank our principal, Peyton Chapman, our teacher, George Tenek, and our coach, Stephen Griffin. And we'd also like to thank you judges for being here today.
Terrific. This is Unit 1, and I'm going to read the question. We're going to jump right in. What is meant by the revolution? The war? That was no part of the revolution. The revolution was in the minds of the people, and this was effected before a drop of blood was drawn. Do you agree or disagree with this opinion? Why? What evidence can you offer to support your position? In what ways, if any, were the basic ideas held by Americans contrary to those held by the British? Were the colonists justified in believing that British policies violated basic principles of constitutional government? Why or why not? Please begin.
John Adams made two claims in his famous letter to Thomas Jefferson. First, that the American Revolution was a revolution of ideas and not force. And second, that the revolution of ideas was complete before the fighting began. We disagree.
War was as vital to the American Revolution as the ideas behind it. Without war, the ideas could not have been realized. Without war, a united country could not have emerged. And without war, the lesson that government needs executive power could not have been learned.
Even if you define a revolution as simply a shift in political ideas that leads to a new form of government, Adams' statement is only half true. Some of the American revolutionary ideas did occur before the first drop of blood was drawn at Lexington in 1775. Other important ideas, however, came after. We will discuss these two sets of ideas in that order.
Between 1763 and 1775, according to historian Bernard Bailyn, Americans developed three new ideas contrary to those held by the British. The first was representation. The British viewed members of Parliament as trustees of the nation, as explained by Edmund Burke in his speech to his Bristol electors. Americans viewed legislators as delegates of their districts. To Americans, a tax passed without delegates was taxation without representation. The Constitution links taxation and representation in Article 1, Section 7 and 8.
The second Newman idea was constitution. Constitution to the British meant the way government works. Constitution to Americans meant a higher law limiting the way government works. To the colonists, the ancient rights of Englishmen, secured by Magna Carta and promised in colonial charters, were a constitution Parliament itself could not change. Recent decisions such as Obergefell v. Hodges continued the tradition of the higher law of rights.
The third new idea was sovereignty. To the British, the king in Parliament was the one and only possible sovereign. To Americans, the people were sovereign, and sovereignty can be divided between levels of government. Parliament was competent on some matters, colonial legislatures on others. Divided sovereignty continues in American federalism today, illustrated by the 10th and 11th Amendments.
More ideas were to come. Between 1775 and 1787, according to historian Gordon Wood, Americans underwent a second revolution in political ideas. In 1775, revolutionaries thought getting rid of the king would solve their problems. A new republic of virtue would put an end to politics. They discovered republicanism simply changed the threat to their liberties. Men, wrote James Madison, are not angels. In the 1780 Massachusetts Constitution and the 1787 U.S. Constitution, this darker view of human nature led to three new ideas: checks and balances inside government to temper legislative supremacy, an extended republic to dilute factions, and overriding federal powers to deal with wayward states. Federalist Papers 10 and 51 express this revolution. Every article of the Constitution bears its fingerprints.
Whether British policies violated basic principles of constitutional government depends on your point of view. To the British, violation was impossible because Parliament was sovereign. Parliament, in the words of Sir William Blackstone, can do any act not naturally impossible. The main dispute in any event was always over taxes, which the colonies owed as a matter of equity after the French and Indian War.
To Americans, British policies did violate basic principles of legislation, taxation, criminal procedure, and economic freedom. Sir Edward Coke had said these liberties were older than Magna Carta itself. In fighting for these principles, the colonists were better defenders of British rights than the British themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
This is our first time, too. Why did the colonists believe that British policies violated their rights as Englishmen?
The colonists complained that the king was keeping a standing army and quartering soldiers, and this complaint is protected as an ancient English right in the English Bill of Rights of 1689.
Additionally, the colonists complained that the king was cutting off trade with all other parts of the world. This was seen as a fundamental English right in Magna Carta, Chapter 41, which stated that merchants shall have the right to move and trade freely with other nations.
The colonists also complained that the king had sent hither swarms of new officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. This substance protection, or means of livelihood, is seen in the Magna Carta in chapters 20, 28, 30, and 31.
In addition, the Declaration accuses the king for depriving us the many benefits of trial by jury. This is seen in Magna Carta, chapter 39, where no one, except for the lawful judgment of his peers, and the law of the land, can be deceased.
Let's go ahead and move on.
thank you. So to what degree would the Founding Fathers be sympathetic or antagonistic to the militiamen who have taken over the Malheur Wildlife Refuge in Bend, Oregon, who claim that the government is violating the social contract?
The founders would have thought it was important that the people be expressing their views of government. The founders deeply believed that people are the government and that they are where the power comes from. And so if the people feel that the government is overstepping its boundaries, then it is important that they express that.
Additionally, as John Locke stated in his second treatise of government, when the people consent to the government, their rights are sometimes violated a little bit. For example, when I vote, it doesn't mean my candidate's going to win. By consenting to the government, I know that another candidate might win, and they might impose their policies as well.
The founders really valued exhausting their remedies before starting a revolution, which has already happened in the case of Malheur County. We can see this in the cases Vermont v. U.S. and Light v. U.S. of 1911, where the court ruled that the federal government could regulate the grazing of animals on land, and this is the complaint that the people have in the wildlife refuge. And this has already been taken to the courts. They have already seen that the precedent is not in their favor, therefore they should not have the right of revolution.
I just heard you mention John Locke. Now, I'm curious which other political philosophers, or maybe you could expand on John Locke, did the Revolutionary era colonists look to justify the actions that they were taking?
One other philosopher would be Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes understood that people were bad and they were evil. Therefore, his policies of Leviathan was very influential towards the founders.
Additionally, Montesquieu influenced the formation of the Constitution. He had ideas of checks and balances in government, and he felt it was important that the people be able to check government.
The founders also looked at some philosophers as an anti-model. For example, Rousseau in his Direct Democracy. Examples, the founders really did not like direct democracy, as seen by Shays' Rebellion and other things in which the people, they couldn't be trusted.
Would revolution ever be justified for American citizens in modern times? And if so, under what circumstances?
Revolution can only be justified when you, after consenting to the legal system, you have to exhaust your remedies. After exhausting your remedies, therefore you can use illegal means to justify for a revolution.
In the American Revolution specifically, they did exhaust their remedies through the Olive Branch Petition. They told the king that they were of his grievances, and they presented him with them, and he ignored them. So they did have a right of revolution.
Revolution doesn't always necessarily have to be an aggressive movement by the people. This is seen in the revolution of rights towards homosexuals in this country. We have seen in Bowers v. Hardwick, they said that sodomy laws were legal. However, this was overturned by Lawrence v. Texas. And then recently in Obergefell v. Hodges in 2015, we saw that marriage equality is finally here in the United States.
Additionally, our rights would have to be intentionally violated today, and it'd have to be an extended period of time of this violation in which we have tried to procure our rights and they have not been redressed. And in this, it is this extended period of violation of our rights that we would then have the right of revolution today.
Great. In what ways did colonial governments become more representative than the government in Britain?
Well, first off, colonial governments actually had the colonists being represented in their own legislatures. In Parliament, there was no colonists that actually were able to represent the colonies. And this would have been even harder because they were in England, and even if a colonist could have gone to Parliament, they wouldn't be very representative of them because it took 2 months or more to get there, so how would they be representative of their own country?
Many of the state legislatures also held town meetings, such as Massachusetts. They held a town meeting almost once a week where the people could express their views of government and show what they wanted in their community.
Why were written guarantees of rights in colonial documents important to the development? Well, there we are.
All right. Terrific job, panel. A couple of comments from the judges here. I really appreciated, first of all, that you came out of the gate in your prepared remarks and took a strong position contrary to Thomas Jefferson about the meaning of revolution and that it entails some physical conflict. I'd like to hear that. I think we haven't heard any other groups, but I'm wondering if we'll hear that same position from anybody else today. I thought your discussion, your opening remarks on sovereignty and comparing and contrasting what that meant in England or in Britain and here was spot on. You did a good job discussing the Magna Carta and working in some of the provisions from the Magna Carta. I really appreciated in answer to the question I asked about the right of revolution, Kate, your remarks about revolution without physical conflict, and that doesn't always mean an overthrowing of the government, but sometimes just a revolution against popular sentiment, and I thought that was on point.
I would simply like to echo Mr. Talcott. I was tremendously impressed, particularly with your use of evidence, bringing in not just the Magna Carta, but specifically where in the Magna Carta, and not the Federalist Papers, but Federalist 10, 51. Did a spot-on job of really making the case. You are to be applauded.
I would echo both of them and say that I was really impressed with how you were using your reasoning and how you were looking at the social things that are happening in our community and in our country now and looking at what was happening in the revolution. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, panelists, and thank you to your coaches and to your teachers. If you could have them wave, that would be great. Good job. Thank you.